When I built my $6 million oceanfront villa, I thought the hardest battles of my life were behind me. I had fought my way up from almost nothing, no family support, no emotional safety net, just a stubborn determination to prove that I was more than the quiet, insecure girl my parents never believed in. So when I invited them to my housewarming party to show them what I had built, what I had become, I expected at least a trace of pride. Instead, my mom said, "We won't be coming, Emily. We don't feel comfortable in that kind of world." That one sentence hit harder than any failure I'd ever faced. They weren't proud. They were ashamed. Tell me, would you have still forgiven them if you were in my shoes? It all started 10 years ago when I left home at 19. I came from a small town where dreams were seen as childish luxuries. My father was a mechanic, my mother a teacher, both hardworking but deeply practical. When I told them I wanted to start a business, my dad laughed and said, "Emily, we don't do that. People like us work for others, not the other way around." I remember that moment so vividly, the mix of embarrassment and fury boiling in my chest. I packed my bags that same week with only $800 in my savings and an old laptop that overheated every half hour. I took a one-way bus to the city, promising myself I'd make it no matter what it took. The city wasn't kind to me at first. I lived in a tiny studio apartment that could barely fit a bed and a desk. Some nights, I couldn't even afford dinner, so I'd boil water and pretend it was soup. I started freelancing online graphic design, marketing, anything that paid. For months, I worked 18-hour days, barely sleeping, building a tiny portfolio. I failed often. Clients ghosted me. My internet was cut off twice because I couldn't pay the bills. But every setback became fuel. I told myself, "Emily, you'll turn this into something." After about 2 years of freelancing, I saved enough to start a small social media branding agency. I ran it out of that same cramped apartment. My first client was a local bakery that paid me $200 to design their website and run ads. That project changed everything. Their sales doubled, and they recommended me to others. Within a year, I was managing marketing for 10 small businesses. I finally hired my first employee, a college intern who believed in me when I barely believed in myself. We worked side by side, pulling all-nighters, eating cheap noodles, laughing through exhaustion. It was the first time in my life I felt like I was building something real. Then came the real break. A major fashion startup noticed my work and offered me a contract worth more money than I'd ever seen in my life. I remember signing it with shaking hands, whispering, "This is it." That deal opened doors I didn't even know existed. My agency started growing faster than I could keep up with. I hired staff, rented office space, and finally moved out of that suffocating apartment into a modest but beautiful home. My parents, however, never called. I'd send photos, updates, even tried to visit, but every conversation felt like I was bragging to them. My mother once said, "It's great that you're doing well, Emily, but don't forget where you came from," as if success was a betrayal. By my 30th birthday, my company was thriving. We had global clients, a full creative team, and revenue that still doesn't feel real when I think about it. I didn't splurge much, I kept living simply, but there was one dream I couldn't shake. Ever since I was little, I'd imagined living by the ocean. So when I saw an empty cliffside property overlooking endless turquoise waves, I knew I had to have it. It was outrageously expensive, $2. $8 million just for the land, but I told myself it would be my biggest personal project yet. Over the next 3 years, I poured my heart into designing every inch of that villa. Floor to ceiling glass walls, natural stone interiors, an infinity pool that seemed to spill right into the sea. It wasn't just a home. It was the physical proof of every sleepless night, every tear, every moment I told myself not to give up. When construction finally finished, I stood on the balcony overlooking the ocean and cried. Not because of the house itself, but because I'd built a life my younger self could only have dreamed of. Naturally, I wanted my parents to see it too. So I called them, voice trembling with excitement. "Mom, Dad, I'm hosting a housewarming next weekend. I'd love for you to come. It's finally done, my villa by the ocean." There was a long silence before my mother said softly, "Emily, that's not really our kind of place. We wouldn't fit in." I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking, but she continued, "You've changed so much. Your world isn't ours anymore." My father added, "You don't need us there, Em. You have your fancy friends now." That night, I sat alone by the pool, listening to the waves crash, feeling the old ache I thought I'd outgrown. I didn't need their money or approval, but all I ever wanted was their pride. So I made a decision: if they wouldn't come, I'd still celebrate the life I built. I invited everyone else, my friends, employees, mentors, and even some neighbors I'd never officially met. The week leading up to the party was a blur of preparations. Caterers set up gourmet tables by the pool, decorators arranged thousands of white flowers, and a live band rehearsed under the open sky. But even as everything came together beautifully, I couldn't shake that hollow feeling. On the morning of the event, I walked through the empty villa, sunlight pouring in through glass walls, and whispered, "I hope they'd be proud if they could see this." By sunset, the place came alive. Guests arrived in elegant dresses and suits, music floated through the air, and laughter echoed against the waves. I greeted everyone at the entrance, smiling genuinely, even though part of me was breaking inside. Cameras flashed, drones filmed the golden reflections of the ocean pool, and for a moment I let myself feel happy. Halfway through the night, I stood on the balcony with a glass of champagne, watching the crowd below. My assistant came up and said, "Emily, this is amazing. Everyone's talking about how inspiring you are." I smiled, but the words barely sank in. Somewhere deep down, I was still that girl who just wanted her parents to show up and say, "We're proud of you." Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask, if your parents refused to celebrate your success, would you still let them back into your life later? Comment what you'd do in my place. The next morning, after the party ended, I woke up early and sat outside on the balcony again. The world was quiet except for the ocean waves. My phone buzzed dozens of notifications. My guests had shared photos and videos of the event online, and it had gone viral. #Ocean Villa Party was trending. People were commenting things like, "Self-made queen energy," and "This is what hard work looks like." I scrolled through them smiling, then froze when I saw a text from Mom. It said, "We saw the photos. The house looks beautiful. You look happy. We're sorry we didn't come." My heart pounded. Minutes later, my phone rang. It was my dad. His voice was quiet, unsure. "Em, your mom and I feel terrible. We didn't realize how much this meant to you. We thought we'd embarrass you there. We were wrong." I didn't say anything for a long time. Tears welled up. Finally, I said, "Dad, I didn't build this to impress you. I just wanted you to see I'm okay, that I made it." He sighed. "We know, and we're proud. Can we visit?" When they arrived later that afternoon, I met them at the gate. My mom looked around in disbelief: the endless ocean, the sleek architecture, the sunlight dancing on glass. "Emily," she whispered, "you really did this." I nodded, smiling through tears. "Yes, Mom, I really did." My dad hugged me tighter than he had in years and said, "You didn't need our approval, but you have it anyway." We spent that evening quietly on the balcony, eating leftovers from the party, watching the sunset. There was no grand apology, no dramatic speech, just presence. And for me, that was enough. Now, months later, I still wake up every morning to the sound of the ocean and think about that younger version of myself, scared, hungry, and determined. I want her to know it was all worth it. The pain, the doubt, the rejection, it built me into who I am. And if you're listening to this thinking you'll never get there, please don't give up. Sometimes the people who don't believe in you are the reason you learn to believe in yourself. Like this video if you were on my side, subscribe for more real stories like this, and tell me in the comments, would you have forgiven your parents, or would you have closed that door forever? I'll see you in the next story.